Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're heading back to Basin City. Deep into those shadows.
That gritty black and white world.
Exactly. We're unpacking Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, the 2014 sequel from Frank Miller and Robert Rodriguez. Took them long enough, right?
Almost a decade. And, that gap is really key to understanding this film.
Okay, so our mission today, figure out that long journey, look at how faithful it was visually, but also dissect why it ran into so many problems, especially with time and, well, substance.
Right, because the first Sin City in 2005, groundbreaking stuff. It showed you could literally lift comic panels onto the screen.
Totally revolutionary. But this sequel, it got greenlit pretty fast, but then just vanished.
Pretty much. Fell into what they call development hell for, the better part of a decade.
Our sources confirm that. Just stuck there.
And that delay, it turned out to be, kind of fatal for its reception. It was meant for October 2013 originally.
Wow, okay.
But it got pushed back a whole year. Didn't hit screens until August 2014.
A full year later?
And think about that 9-year gap between the films. Cinema changed. You had the MCU teaching audiences to expect, tightly plotted, interconnected stories. Nolan's Batman films, too.
Right. Serialized continuity became the norm.
Yeah.
People weren't really primed for that anthology out-of-order style anymore.
Exactly. What felt fresh and stylistic in 2005 suddenly felt maybe a bit confusing or even sloppy in 2014.
Okay, but let's start with what they absolutely got right. The look.
Oh, undeniably.
You saw it and boom, instantly back in Sin City. That same noirish, high-contrast comic book aesthetic, so stylish.
Insanely cool, yeah. Rodriguez was completely committed to Miller's vision. He even insisted Miller share the directing credit again.
Just like the first time.
Right. That digital backlot technique he pioneered, it wasn't just a look, it was the film's language. Yeah. It had to be that faithful.
And if you're doing the A Dame to Kill For storyline, the absolute core is the dame herself. Belled casting her must have been huge.
The biggest challenge for sure. Frank Miller described her as every man's most glorious dreams come true. She's also every man's darkest nightmares. That's a lot to live up to.
That's quite the description. You need someone magnetic who can flip from innocent to, well, deadly.
Precisely. And the role, interestingly, was first written with Angelina Jolie in mind.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, but ultimately they went with Eva Green.
And, wow. What a choice.
Flawless casting, honestly. Even the director said she could embody the multifaceted characteristics of this femme fatale. If one thing truly worked in that film, it was her performance as Ava.
Absolutely. She kind of holds that central story together.
Definitely the strongest part of the movie. Largely thanks to her.
And she wasn't the only big name. They brought back a lot of the original crew.
Oh, yeah, the returning cast was stacked. Mickey Rourke back as Marv, obviously.
Can't have Sin City without Marv. And Jessica Alba as Nancy, Bruce Willis popping up as Hardigan again.
Rosario Dawson as Gail, Jamie King playing Goldie and Wendy. The core group was there.
But the new faces were just as impressive. A massive ensemble.
Huge. Josh Brolin taking over as Dwight, which is a key role we need to talk about.
Right. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a totally new character, Johnny.
Dennis Haysbert stepped in as Manute, replacing the late Michael Clark Duncan, which was, handled respectfully.
Yeah, tough act to follow.
And then you had Christopher Maloney, Jeremy Piven, Jamie Chung taking over as Miho because Devon Aoki was pregnant.
Ray Liotta, Juno Temple, Julia Garner. I mean, the list goes on.
It really does. It shows they threw a lot of talent and probably money at this thing.
Okay, so killer, look, incredible cast.
Yeah.
But the structure, that seems to be where the cracks really started to show. Like the first film, it's episodic, different stories, not necessarily in order. That's how you get characters like Marv or Hardigan showing up, even if they didn't make it through the first film.
And that worked fine in 2005. People got it. It was an anthology, a collection of noir tales set in this heightened reality.
Right.
But fast forward to 2014, post-MCU dominance. That non-chronological thing felt less like a cool stylistic choice and more like a narrative headache. Especially because of which stories they chose.
Okay, let's break down the main segments. There were 4, right?
Basically, yeah. You had the main one, A Dame to Kill For, with Eva Green's Ava asking Dwight for help. Everyone agrees that's the strongest.
Then Joseph Gordon-Levitt's story, The Long Bad Night. He plays Johnny, a gambler taking on the big bad, Senator Roark, played by Powers Boothe.
Right, high-stakes poker, classic Sin City stuff.
And Nancy's story, Nancy's Last Dance, dealing with Hardigan's death. trying to cope.
Which gave Jessica Alba a bit more dramatic weight to work with.
And finally, just another Saturday night, which basically brings Marv back into the mix.
Just Marv doing Marv things.
So the big structural issue kicks in because A Dame to Kill For, the main event, is actually a prequel to a story from the first movie.
Exactly. It's set before the big fat kill segment from the 2005 film, and that's where the Dwight problem comes in.
Okay, walk us through the Dwight problem. Because in the first film, Clive Owen played Dwight.
Right. And in the big fat kill, his character gets reconstructive surgery, a new face at the end of that story.
So in the sequel, which is set before that surgery,
Josh Brolin plays Dwight, the implication being Brolin is what Dwight looked like before he looked like Clive Owen.
okay, I could sort of follow that.
But here's the kicker. The reviews pointed this out quite strongly. Even when Brolin's Dwight gets his new face within the sequel's timeline, the surgery supposedly meant to change him into the version Clive Owen played.
He still looks like Josh Brolin.
Pretty much. Maybe, like a slightly different haircut. It completely muddles the visual continuity. Unless you're a hardcore comic fan who knows the transformation happens, it just looks like, well, nothing happened.
Huh. So the film asks you to believe that major facial surgery resulted in Josh Brolin still looking like Josh Brolin, but somehow that leads to him being Clive Owen later.
Yeah, it's a big logical leap based purely on casting. Very confusing for casual viewers just trying to flood the character.
Wow, okay. That sounds like a pretty major stumble in connecting the dots visually. And it wasn't just Dwight, was it? The time gap affected other actors too.
Oh, definitely. That's the irony of waiting 9 years. You had necessary recasts, like Dennis Haysbert for Manute or Jamie Chung for Miho, and those worked okay.
Right.
But then you had returning actors in segments meant to be prequels. Jamie King playing Goldie Wendy again. The critique was she looked, understandably, about 10 years older than in the first film.
But her segment was chronologically earlier.
Some parts were meant to be, yes. So you have an actress who's visibly aged, playing a supposedly younger version of her character, setting up events involving Dwight, who's played by a different actor, pre-surgery, who then gets surgery but doesn't look different.
Okay, my head hurts just trying to map that out.
Exactly. It's like trying to assemble IKEA furniture, but the instructions are from 9 years ago, and some of the parts have changed shape. Okay. Critics and audiences just struggled to, quote, validate the inconsistencies.
It sounds like the non-chronological cool factor just completely backfired because of the delay and the casting complexities.
It really did. Plus, they added a new story written just for the film, which further complicated trying to make it all fit neatly with the established 2005 movie's timeline.
So the structure kind of buckled. What was the final critical verdict then? We know the visuals were praised. Eva Green was perfect. JGL was great too.
Yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was singled out as perfectly cast for his role. And like you said, even Jessica Alba got props for showing more range that she can actually act.
But despite those bright spots,
the overall takeaway was pretty consistent. Style over substance.
The classic critique.
Yep. It looked incredible, just drooping with that cool Sin City vibe. But if you stripped away all the visual flair, the stories themselves, especially outside of Ava Lord's main plot, just weren't strong enough. They felt thin.
Lacking that punch, that payoff.
Exactly. That sense of gratification or vindication you want from a noir story. It often felt like things just happened without much consequence or emotional resonance.
And did the film try to compensate for that lack of story depth?
Seems like it. Reviews pointed to just copious amounts of bloodshed and sex oozing from every other pore.
Okay, so amping up the violence and sexuality.
To the point where it felt overly gratuitous, according to some. The analysis was that maybe Rodriguez was trying to, make up for something that's lacking elsewhere.
Using shock value to cover narrative weaknesses.
Right. And the suggestion was that this kind of excess has sort of become a trademark of Rodriguez's sequels in general around that time. More is more, even if the core isn't quite there.
So it's a strange situation where sticking too faithfully to the visual style, which is essential for Sin City, actually ended up highlighting the script's weaknesses in a 2014 context.
Precisely. The world had moved on, audiences expected tighter plotting, and the film's structural choices felt jarringly out of step.
And the box office reflected that disconnect, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was a commercial disappointment. The numbers basically said, don't hold your breath for Sin City 3. We might be waiting a lot longer this time, maybe forever.
So the hard lesson here seems to be amazing style, faithfulness to the source, even perfect casting like Eva Green as the ultimate dame to kill for. None of it guarantees success if the narrative structure gets tangled up in confusing chronology and doesn't deliver satisfying stories, especially after a long delay.
Yeah, that 9-year gap just created too many hurdles, both in terms of production continuity and shifting audience tastes. It's a unique format, that Miller-Rodriguez collaboration, hard to replicate or reboot easily.
So even though the film itself was maybe not anything to die for in the end, it does leave us with a really interesting question, doesn't it? What does this failure tell you, the listener, about adapting beloved cult classics after a long time, especially when the whole landscape, like with Marvel, has changed audience expectations? Should filmmakers prioritize that almost slavish visual style, or do they need to adapt the storytelling structure to match what audiences now expect?
That's the tough question. How much authenticity are you willing to trade for coherence, you know?
Something to think about next time you hear about a long-delayed sequel finally getting made.